Thank you very much to Ndlovu for that business update. All right, let's take you back now to one of our leading stories, the chaotic scenes erupting in the KZN Legislature during the Premier's motion of no confidence after the Speaker refused for a secret ballot to take place. The Premier, Thami Ntuli, survived today's vote. Let's talk now to political analyst Dr Imraan Buccus, who joins us for some analysis. Dr. Buccus, good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time. We'll talk in a moment about the behavior of certain political parties and the reasons behind this motion. But I'd like to start the conversation off with the Speaker's handling of the entire exercise. How do you think she fared?
Well, I know there are some questions around that, Koli. But I also know some of it is probably informed by the dynamics within the NFP itself. There are fractures within the NFP. I know the president holds a particular position. There is a legal case happening behind the scenes between them. And I think the chairperson here wants to maintain the GPU. But nonetheless, I think what she has done has been welcomed, although there are questions about whether this should have been done through secret ballot.
All right. So the chaotic scenes that erupted as a result of her disallowing for this vote to take place in secret. She was criticized heavily by the party that tabled this motion. As a result, it would appear that obviously things did not pan out the way that they would have anticipated had this been a secret ballot. Do you believe that the MK party would possibly have succeeded in this motion had it been held secretly?
Yeah, I mean, that's possible, Koli, but the broader question here is about the balance of forces in the GPU. I think they're extremely fluid. We're seeing a whole range of machinations happening. But I think one of the crucial points that we're missing in this is that they are sleeper agents. And while this may not have surfaced now, it certainly could have surfaced in a secret ballot. And I think what we're likely to see as we approach the local government elections, which could well be in January 2027 or late 26, I think people will vote in terms of their own survival, and we'll start to see these sleeper agents making their mark. And I think that's going to add to the fluidity and the fragility of the coalition that we have in KZN.
That's a very interesting observation, the sleeper agents. Let's talk about the motivation behind the motion of no confidence. Why do you think it was put forward in the first place? Was it a substantive motion, as the saying goes? And what that means, basically, is that was there really credence behind this? Or is it the MK party getting impatient, given the majority that they possess, although not big enough to run that province? Are they getting impatient? Is this about the residents of KZN, or does it have to do with the stomach politics?
Well, there's a crude response to it, but I'll try to be less crude about it. I think ultimately, of course, the MK will be getting impatient. They have the majority of votes here. They have the majority of seats. And, if you look through the documents, they talk about bringing this motion because, the current GPU protects elite interests and they want to be the party that transforms the life of the black majority, etc. Now, many people would dismiss that rhetoric and say, the MK wants to be there so they have control over the public purse. And there are more crude assessments about, how that looting is likely to take place if MK were to come into power. And, the MK has shown no substantial potential to govern in a way that will transform the lives of people, to govern in a way that, responds to the people's needs in terms of service delivery. What we do know, however, is that support for the MK, ironically, is growing in many communities. The Social Research Foundation work and other work is showing empirical evidence for that growing, although one could well argue that, qualitatively, if one goes into communities, is it the same story? But my sense is their support is growing because even within municipalities, there's a deep desire for access to the public purse. MK hasn't shown anything besides infighting, linked to leadership and linked to issues around money.
Let's then talk about the behavior that we saw today. The Premier of the province, who doubles up as chairperson of the IFP, addressing outside after surviving that motion and quickly going for the jugular of what he observed inside. And he says, what we saw there today, those visuals are on your screen right now, Dr. Buccus, as we speak, was the manhandling of women at a time when the country is dealing with a pandemic. It's not an epidemic, it's a pandemic. It's now actually been declared a disaster of gender-based violence. Was he spot on in how he described the scenes inside there? And what do you make of this behavior?
Yeah, I think it comes as no surprise when you see this behavior from MK and as well, and of course the EFF. The question he raises about gender, I think is deserving of some analysis. Many political parties talk about the gender question, talk about equity, gender equity, and how we should have 50-50 representation, etc. But I think the reality is that often the gender question is used for propelling, politics and for propelling people's own political ambitions. And, of course, that doesn't mean that, what's happening in the provincial legislature, does not need to be condemned. But I think the broader issue here is also how women are used to propel political agendas. But of course, that, behavior in the provincial legislature was certainly appalling.
Yeah. Let me tease out one element that you mentioned earlier before I let you go. You spoke about sleeper agents, and I'd like to bring into the equation the National Freedom Party, NFP. One of its members is an executive in this government, the MEC, and the understanding is that how she possibly would have voted today is misaligned with what her party president wanted done today. And so that's one element. And then there is the EFF. Its leader, Julius Malema, ahead of this motion, stating very clearly, giving a direction basically to members of his party in that legislature that let's support this motion. No matter what you think of the MK party, the people of KZN gave them this, and perhaps they should be given the chance to lead. Once again, in my head, I have that terminology that is always ascribed to the EFF, and that is that they are flip-floppers. Would you say that fits in this context?
So let's take the first part, right? So you have this contention between Barnes and what's happening nationally and what's happening in the province. I think one may well argue that Barnes does not have a substantial position nationally and would like to be in KZN in the leadership here. The other dynamic, of course, there is the legal battle and the interdict, and I think that gives the chairperson here greater room to maneuver. Because in terms of that interdict, she can't be removed until, I think, well after the local government elections. So there's a level of protection there for her. And about the EFF and flip-flopping, I think we know that from, the recent history of the EFF and, of course, maybe since its inception, not necessarily recent. that the EFF not only acts in its interest, but acts, opportunistically in the extreme. So Malema is known to, often concoct an argument, and that argument lends itself to the opportunism that we've seen of the EFF since its inception.
Dr. Imraan Buccus, thank you very much for your time and analysis tonight.